Hello everybody out there watching on YouTube, and welcome to race number 35 / chase race number 9 of Season 5 of the NNSCRA Marvel Studios Cup Series. I'm Levi McIntyre, the voice of the NNSCRA Marvel Studios Cup Series, here to welcome you to the California 400 here at California Speedway, as we're getting set for 30 laps of racing here at this slick 2-mile racetrack. And we are really getting down to the wire now, because after today we got one race left, and that's at the best track, Kansas. But let's take a look at how the chase standings look coming into the race today. So after last week at the Denver Roval, Dylan Jacobs, who won at the Denver Roval, extends his points lead to 42 points over Jake Rogers. 66 over Paul Minnick, 67 over Chris Dollarton. So Minnick, Dollarton, and Rogers are going to have to hope they finish top 5 or even win, and hope Dylan Jacobs finishes in the bottom 5 if they are going to have a chance at the championship for next week at Kansas. Anyways, everyone else is pretty much out of it. 101 back is Alex Drayton, 115 back James McLeod, 134 back both Joshua Collard and Benjamin Miles, 142 back is our pole sitter for today, Carson Gum, and then 156 back is Kyle Matthews. So with that said, let's take a look at the starting lineup. Starting in the last row is Chris Dollarton, Matt McIntyre. Where are the other chasers starting? Kyle Matthews 33rd, Paul Minnick 32nd, Dylan Jacobs, the points leader, 24th. Alex Drayton, 22nd. Jake Rogers, 21st. James McLeod, 18th. Benjamin Miles, 16th. And then the top 10. Carson Gum on the pole, like I said. Starting next to him is Jay Jefferson. Row 2 is Tim Fiegel, Joshua Sekuli. Row 3, Patrick Smith and Zachary Fitzwater. And then in row 4, James Shelley, DJ Curtis. And then row 5, Jessica Shelton and Joshua Collard. Let's go ahead and get the command to fire engines for the California 400 at California Speedway.
Drivers, start your engines!
All 40 drivers on the racetrack for their one pace lap. So, a couple of the notes for this track is generally 4 wide going into turn 1 is not going to necessarily work, because it can cause either a small crash or a big crash. And then, of course, pit strategy is going to be a huge factor here at this racetrack, especially if a race is green all the way through and people start pitting at the end. It's all going to determine on who's going to have the better fuel tank. But like I said, Jake Rogers, Paul Minnick, and Chris Dollarton, like I said, they're going to have to hope to finish well and hope Dylan Jacobs finishes bottom 5 in order for them to be in proper contention for Kansas. Otherwise, the championship could be very much locked up. Pace car in pit road. Boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's go racing. And I realized my mic was muted that whole time. I apologize. I was saying the lap before we almost had a wreck between Collard and Zorline. And I see somebody in the wall back there. I believe that is Trent Dunham. And I think it was, yeah, because he's slow. And then I was saying that run that Qualls was going for underneath Fiegel now finally pays off, as Qualls has the race lead for now. Yeah, James Qualls definitely is a guy who wants to forget about this season and move on to Season 6, considering he is currently 32nd in points. He did win a race earlier this season. If I recall, it was at Denver, not the Roval, but the regular Denver. And he's trying to go for win number 2, but meanwhile underneath of him is a guy trying to go for win number 3, Dylan Young, who similarly has had quite a struggling season. Especially in recent weeks. He's been getting bottom 5 for a couple of races now. And he comes into this race 26th in the championship standings. Right now having a good run, but he's trying to get around James Qualls, but Qualls has got a pretty strong race car on the outside lane. Meanwhile, Dylan Young has Colin Phillips behind him, trying to give him a bit of an aero push, so to speak. But it looks like Dylan Young will lead the lap here at the line, as he's got the advantage over Qualls. But will he be able to clear Qualls off of turn 2? That's the question. And yeah, you can tell how slick this racetrack is, because you can see some drivers are practically drifting going in through turns 1 and 2. Meanwhile, Dylan Young left the bottom open, as here comes Colin Phillips underneath. And in fact, remember what I was saying earlier about some of those top 4 and points drivers needing to run well? Chris Dollerton, who started in the last row, I believe, and he's already up here into the top 5. And just... Oh, and there they go! Dollerton was in it! I think I jinxed him! Oh, this is a huge crash! Huge crash, and they're still wrecking! Points leader Dylan Jacobs got through. Alex Drayton, however, 5th in points, was in it. Qualls, who had such a good run going, caught up in it. And the momentum streak of Cody Lamas has ended. He was in it. Preston Plord, who was one of the first cars I saw get sent around. Dollerton, luckily no front-end damage, but I feel like he's going to be very much off the pace. Ryan Butcher was in it. Ethan Hoffman, who took a couple hard hits. James McLeod was in it too, and according to scoring, Colin Phillips is the race leader. But man, that was a crazy crash. That was probably the biggest wreck we've had at this racetrack in quite some time. Because typically we just have like 1, 2, or 3 car incidents. That was more like almost a 10 car deal right there. But we're going to stick around for a moment to see if if these drivers are going to come into pit road under this caution, in which that would really put them at risk for pit strategy for the rest of the race. And yes, here they all come in. Anyone staying out is the question. And I don't see anybody staying out. Looks like everybody is coming into pit road as is. And again, I'm not sure why the frame rate's screwing up. Let's go up to the pace, or not the pace car, but the furthest pit stall, which would be Carson Gum right here. So let's see who's going to come out first. It looks like Diego Yepes is coming out first, unless he missed his pit stall, which I honestly think is what happened. Then Colin Phillips, Matt McIntyre, Zachary Fitzwater, Jake Rogers will be your top 5. So, interesting circumstances for Diego Yepes, but I honestly feel like he didn't even get to have his pit stop, and I think he's probably going to end up coming back in after the fact. But let's go ahead and take a look at the replay of what brought the caution out for the first time today here at California. Well, here's a look at what happened. So on the front stretch, they are 5 wide, as you can tell, and it looks like how this is all going to start. Dylan Thoreau gets up into Kyle Matthews and then just turns into Matthews, in which it turns him down into Dollarton, Plord. Hoffman's going to get involved here momentarily. But then look at Preston. Comes back up, and that's how he collects everyone else, collecting Butcher, Qualls, Lamas, and Preston actually almost flipped from the contact. But let's see what happens with Hoffman after the fact. After Kyle gets turned, and I think Kyle saved it by some miracle, saves it, but does get the wall a little bit. Hoffman gets into Thoreau, and then he starts to go sideways, and then there's where Drayton gets his damage. And look at the good job Dylan Jacobs did to nearly avoiding the 99 as he was sliding back down. Zorlane, there's where Zorlane got his damage. So too does McLeod, and man, just a lot of crazy things happened during this wreck. Well, how did Hartnett get involved? I didn't even see Hartnett. Oh, he was way at the back. And he sees the smoke, but he's kind of just stuck on the outside. He was committed to running outside and then just hard into the rear end of James Qualls, and that was what did the final job to the engine of the 70. So yeah, quite a number of cars were caught up in this, so there went any hope of those top 4 drivers in points, not Dylan Jacobs, to hope that the 70 would finish bottom 5, because I think those are going to get occupied. So let's go ahead and take you to the restart here at California. Well, after that big wreck, we got the bottom 5 confirmed, and they are Ethan Hoffman, James McLeod, Cody Lamas, James Qualls, Emmanuel Hartnett. With Preston Plord a lap down, somehow going to continue despite nearly flipping during that crash. But this is going to be an interesting restart because we're going to get to him in just a moment. But Diego Yepes is the race leader. However, I feel like he didn't get into his pit stall, and that's why he ended up staying out, just to get them bonus points. But he is the race leader. Second, Colin Phillips. Third, Matt McIntyre. Fourth, Zachary Fitzwater. Fifth, Jake Rogers. Sixth is Dylan Young. Seventh is Dylan Thoreau, but I got a strange feeling he's going to be off the pace because he did take a big hit in the rear end of his race car, as you can tell from the damage. Eighth, James Shelley. Ninth, Dylan Jacobs. 10th, Benjamin Miles. 11th, Joshua Collard. 12th, Seth Cole. 13th, Tim Fiegel. 14th, Paul Minnick. 15th, Sean Galligan. 16th, excuse me, is Patrick Smith. 17th is Jake Baskinger. 18th, Anthony McCurry. 19th, Jay Jefferson. 20th, Jessica Sheldon. 21st, Cullen Francis. 22nd, Dougie Shears. 23rd, Carson Gum. 24th, DJ Curtis. 25th, Rafael Leduc. 26th is Joshua Sekuli. 27th, Charles Sanford. 28th, Trent Dunham. 29th, Dylan Poteet. 30th, Jonathan Zorling. Then Kyle Matthews, Ryan Butcher, Alex Drayton, Chris Dollarton. Back underway, and Diego Yepes got a pretty darn good restart. Pretty good jump on that restart, as he got a bit of a gap between himself and the 00, at least for now. But I'm staying with the 17 to keep an eye on him, see if he's going to still be up to speed or not. And it appears as though he will still be up to speed, because he's keeping up with the front runners right now. But I'm staying with the 10, and let's see if he's going to stay out, or is he going to have to come back into the pits. Now he's going to stay out, so maybe they did get gas. But maybe he just went with gas only or gas and 2 tires, one of the 2. But he's still got the race lead for now, but here comes Dylan Young and Colin Phillips underneath. And Dylan Young actually got into the 10 a little bit to move him up out of the way and clears the 10 for the spot. But he's got MWR teammates up here coming. Dylan Young's got company in the form of Colin Phillips and Jake Rogers. Rogers right now the highest of those top 4 in points, and then the points leader, Dylan Jacobs, then Paul Minnick. But Rogers is going to have to probably hope for a win and hope Jacobs finishes further back if he's going to have any chance of challenging for the championship at Kansas next week. Meanwhile, Dylan Young still leading the way here at California, and when we get to the line, it's going to be 15 to go, so we'll be halfway through the California 400. Meanwhile, MWR teammates battle for second. Colin Phillips has it, but Jake Rogers wants it. But again, you got to remember, if whether or not these drivers are going to have to pit one more time. But still, these two teammates battling side by side, and then behind them is a side-by-side battle for fourth between Diego Yepes and Dylan Jacobs. Oh boy, I had a little backup right there, I apologize. Meanwhile, Dylan Jacobs has caught up to that. Whoa, that was close. Rogers got a little bit loose, so too the double zero of Phillips, and they both nearly crashed once the 78 came into the picture. So that was a close call. Very close call for those guys. Meanwhile, look at Joshua Collard. He restarted 10th up to 5th. Paul Minnick, who's actually 3 of the 4 top 4 drivers in points, are really, really close together right now, up here in the top 10. But as all this is happening, Dylan Young continues to lead the race here at California, as he's trying to go for win number 3 this season. I believe should be win number 3 if that were the case. Yeah, because he's won twice already this season. Meanwhile, Rogers and Jacobs continues to fight each other for a spot. Jacobs, if Jacobs is trying to actually maybe go for the win here, so that way he could pretty much have the championship clinched going into Kansas, and it wouldn't matter what would happen at Kansas, depending on the points, of course, because remember, maximum you can get is 54, and let's say we have a scenario where Jacobs comes into this race 54 points ahead of Jake Rogers, that somehow Jake Rogers led the most laps, won, Dylan Jacobs was bottom 5, there would be a tie. So we could run into a scenario like that, possibly. But I did see Diego Yepes come into pit road, so that gave me a feeling that perhaps he didn't get all the gas in that race car. Meanwhile, Colin Phillips hanging on strong in second, despite challenges from 2 of the top 4 in points. Well, actually, I might as well make it top 3 because Dollarton was 4th, but he's pretty much not in contention anymore. But yeah, Dylan Jacobs got forced up high and now has lost a couple of spots, which is what the 56 wanted. It's more the 56 that we're keeping an eye on. Minnick, on the other hand, he's just a long shot. He came in 66 behind the 78. Meanwhile, second and third in points running, second and third on the racetrack, Rogers and Minnick. And while that's all happening, a couple of Richard Petty Motorsports drivers up here into the picture. Collard and Galligan all working together. And then you got 2 of the Furniture Row teammates, Dylan Jacobs with Rafael LeDuc. After all, this is the final season that these 2 are going to be teammates with each other. Because remember, next season, Rafael LeDuc's joining Retro Racing Enterprises in the 09 Lowe's Chevrolet. The 77, however, you'll know who's going to drive that car whenever we get to the announcements of the drivers and schedule for Season 6, which will come out this Saturday. the day after Kansas takes place. Meanwhile, Galligan right now running in second, but look at Jacobs. He's got a full head of steam trying to get back up here, but they're going to have to contend with a few slow cars before this whole thing's done. Alex Drayton going to be the first one. Who's he going to hold up? Oh, he's kind of holding up Dylan Young a little bit. Dylan got a little bit loose trying to go around him, but he still has the spot. But that did help for Dylan Jacobs to maybe make a move underneath Galligan, but Galligan's got that outside line speed and is holding him off for now, but still side by side now going into 1 and 2. But they got another one coming up, and that's Preston Plore, who is already a lap down. A few cars a lap down, including Diego Yepes, who came in the pit road. Dylan Young did a great job of going by the 24 there, and so too does everyone else. Rogers got a little bit held up, and that's going to cost him. Because remember, he's the closest to the 78 in points as it's less than 6 to go here at California. Dylan Jacobs now has Dougie Shears on his inside. Who's going to prevail, though? Is it going to be the inside or the outside? Right now, it's the outside speed. But Shears still has that inside lane. Can he make something work off of turn 4? Or is the outside just too strong right now? For now, it's still side by side. Rafael Leduc trying to get to the back bumper of the 78 and give him that arrow push to go on by the 83 and clear him. And it's still not over yet between these two, the 78 and the 83. As meanwhile, this is exactly what Dylan Young likes to see, is those drivers racing. Although a couple cars coming in the pit road, that could be a sign that they are going to have to pit. And in fact, they are pitting. Dylan Young sacrifices the lead to come into pit road and now hands the lead over to Paul Minnick. Minnick leads, and here comes Leduc, who won at Texas, I believe. He's trying to go for win number 2, but can he actually keep a potential lead spot after all this pit stop shenanigans? Looking around to keep an eye out for any of the championship contenders. Dylan Jacobs in his stall. Looks like fuel and maybe adjustments. Although that cost him so many spots. That cost him so many spots, so that opens the door for Minnick and Rogers to make something happen. Shears came out first, then Galligan, then Young, Collard, Rogers. Where is the 78? There he is, behind Trent Dunham. Shears got out first of that first group. Now the second, the remaining 4 who stayed out, they are in the pits. Are any of these guys going to be able to keep the spots? And Leduc, close off pit road, but he beats out Minnick. But can he get up to speed and get in front of Dougie Shears, as Shears and company just now getting into turn 1? They're still a good ways back, so I think perhaps Leduc, if he and Minnick can pull out in front of the 83 and 44, they're going to be able to cycle back around to the front. Great strategy on the part of those guys, so I think it's going to be perhaps Rafael Leduc's race to win. As he's actually got a bit of a gap between himself and Paul Minnick. 2 laps to go here at California. Jake Rogers, where is he on the racetrack? There he is. He was last scored 11th. What about the 78? Where was he scored? 18th. So this 56 would get 7 points on the 78 going into Kansas. Although Leduc, he's got company. Minnick is closing in fast on the rear end of the 77 as we're getting ready to take the white flag. And Minnick going to pull out of the draft to go down low as the white flag is out. Paul Minnick trying to make a last desperate effort to get himself closer to the championship battle. Minnick has the lead now. Second is under battle between Galligan and LeDuc. Galligan with the inside, LeDuc on the outside. But man, Galligan, look at the run he's got going, but I don't think it's going to be enough to win as we're getting ready to come off of turn number 4. Huge comeback run for this team. Checkered flag waving. Paul Minnick wins the California 400 at California Speedway. After some pit road issues for some drivers, and also pit strategy as far as when to pit, Minnick prevailed, got by LeDuc with 2 to go, and got the win. Or actually got by on the last lap. It was the last lap pass for the win. And that was Paul Minnick's first win of the season. So that was a good run for that 9 car. But let's look at the rest of the results. Sean Galligan had a full head of steam at the end. But if maybe there was a lap more, he probably would have had some for the 9, but still gets a second place finish. Rafael LeDuc was so close to winning, but gets a third place run. Dougie Shears thought he had it in the bag when he came out of the pits of that big group of cars, but he still gets a 4th place run. And then Benjamin Miles, great run in 5th. Highest finishing rookie, Cullen Francis, in the 6th position. The dominant car of the day, Dylan Young, finishes in 7th. Joshua Sekuli finishing out in 8th. Joshua Collard with a great run in 9th. I meant to say Sekuli if I said Collard for the 11 car. And then Jessica Sheldon rounding out the top 10. Then there's the rest of your top 20 with Jake Rogers 11th, Dylan Jacobs 17th. Then there's your top 30. And then the rest of the field. And actually Alex Drayden ended up just pulling his car into the garage because he couldn't keep up. So, but the bottom 5 was still Ethan Hoffman, James McLeod, Cody Lamas, James Qualls, and Emmanuel Hartnett. Well, we got 1 race left this season. Who's going to be your Season 5 champion? Tune in to Kansas this week and find out for yourself. But until then, here are your results, rookie points and regular points heading into Kansas, the finale. And this is Levi McIntyre signing off.